Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Anglican priest Christian Glasgow says Wednesday night's shooting serves as a bleak reminder of how St. Lucian society has fallen as a result of crime. Reports that the police were shot at, he says, is even more damning. He says the powers that be need to do a deep evaluation of the current situation of lawlessness. A gun battle which ensued between 3 male individuals and officers of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force has alarmed one religious leader on island. Anglican priest Christian Glasgow told Hot 7 News that the incident signified a massive fall in respect and regard for law, especially with reports surfacing that the police were fired upon by the trio. As a result of the incident, one of the young men was killed, whilst another was left nursing gunshot injuries and the third was taken into police custody. Father Glasgow said the incident paints a bleak picture of today's society.
Last night was another one of those reminders as to where our society is today relative to our crime and violence. The incident last night, however, I think has taken it to another level. For if, as it is reported, that the police were fired on by these persons, this really then says that our society is really on the verge of being classified as a lawless society. That is to say, a society where we pay little or no attention to the norms that are set up for the guidance and direction of civilization. If this is the case, then we need to look at what is the reason, what is at the heart of this particular problem or crisis, if you may call it that.
Father Glasgow said the church could very well go out on a limb to help the fight to reduce gun violence. However, he said the efforts would only scratch the surface of the problem.
There are a lot of guns on the street, and yes, one could plea that those owners maybe turn them in. And as a church, if we can be of any assistance in helping to empty the street of these guns, we'll be very happy to do so. But we need to go one step beyond that, because the guns in the street, that's only a symptom of the issue we're dealing with here. We're dealing here with a breakdown in respect for law and order. It did not happen overnight, and neither do I think that there's any one answer to this issue. We need to consider the many facets in which we are defying the law of this land and bringing disorder to it in many ways, morally, spiritually, and otherwise.
He had this message to leaders of the nation, including religious leaders like himself, who he said need to look at themselves and practice what they preach.
If the society is seeing a contradiction between what we say in the pulpit and what we do when it is dark, the society is not going to be paying attention to what we say. Rather, they're simply going to be saying, you have no moral authority to speak to us about respect for law and order. In a similar way, our civil leaders need to look carefully as to how they conduct themselves in public life. And I must make the point, when we're in public life, there's no privacy. There's no private part of our life. Our life is open to the scrutiny of the entire world. And I'm afraid, that when we look at our leaders in public life, there is a lot of contradiction that we see.
Father Glasgow said the conduct shown in the House of Assembly alone speaks volumes about the level of disorder that St. Lucian leaders perpetrate. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez. Prime Minister Alan Chasney is seeking to clarify his words, which have purportedly landed him in hot water with many women's rights advocates, outlining the cause and effect of generational single parenting and the impact it has on society. The PM insists that casting a blind eye on our neighbors' problems today might lead to the problem knocking on your door the very next.
Violent, devious behavior continues to plague the island. Many have called for an increase in police presence, additional outreach programs, and improved employment opportunities. These have all been offered up as solutions to the island's crime problem. Speaking at a recent check-handing over ceremony, Prime Minister Alan Shastney said, "Too often, sensitive issues like crime, poverty, and parenting are politicized rather than analyzed, assessed, and addressed."
When we take on difficult topics, that we allow sometimes politics to overshadow the message. And this is wrong, because it's difficult enough to be able to bring these issues to the forefront. In St. Lucia, we have a problem. We have a crime problem. We classify it as crime because it's acts of violence against each other. Call it what it is. And the fact is, the solution to that problem is within our hands. And I think that all of you would agree. The solution is not incarceration. That's a last resort.
He expounded, the root cause of criminal behavior needs to be identified. The Prime Minister then sought to clear the air on statements made allegedly alluding to a linkage between young single parents and an increase in crime and violence, which did not sit well with many critics.
When you see a young girl who's under the age, and I'm talking about 12, 13, or 14, getting pregnant, is a sad story. I'm not a woman. I can't put myself in the shoes of a woman. But part of that has to be about self-esteem. Because genuinely, I think that if a person feels good about themselves and is optimistic about their future and the contribution that they could make, and is looking forward to being able to make that contribution, would recognize having a child at that age is not going to help the cause. But does that mean it doesn't happen? It does. It does. But it's the next step that matters in order to help that young woman to recognize what has happened and how to ensure that she doesn't get pregnant again until she's in an economic position to be able to sustain that child. Because raising a child is not easy.
He added, the level of difficulty for young women in raising a child is tenfold in a small developing state economy with high levels of poverty. Moreover, Prime Minister Shastney insisted his statements were never meant to cast the blame.
The message I was trying to say, it's not that young person's fault. At no point did we make that blame on that young person. The fault is with us. The fault is with government, because government, I said it, has to become the parent. And the government has to find the resources to make sure that that child growing up in that household is not discriminated against, and that that child has the same opportunity as any other child to succeed. Because when that child is not given the opportunity to succeed, it's a loss to all of us. I also reminded us as a society that when we pass by those households and think that that's not our problem, to please wake up and to recognize that it will become your problem someday.
To solve the issue of crime, Shastney said, a proactive rather than a reactive approach needs to be adopted by all members of society. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Solange Alfred.
The Traffic Department of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force is promising to clamp down on traffic lawbreakers. This warning comes after one individual was arrested during a random traffic stop for riding without a license. Officers within the Traffic Department of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force are vowing to make serious headway in the fight to return law and order to the streets of St. Lucia. Last week Friday, police held a random traffic check in the Rodney Bay vicinity where motorists were checked for updated and valid driving documents. On the day, dozens of tickets were issued for a myriad of traffic violations and one arrest was made. Acting Sergeant in charge of operations in the Traffic Department, Miguel Lancico, gave details of the arrest.
When we stop a driver on stopping the driver, we asked him to produce his driver's license and insurance, and he informed us that he doesn't have a valid driver's license. So right now we arrested him for the offense of driving without a valid driver's license.
Lancico said this is just the beginning of things to come. Efforts, he said, are going to become bigger and more frequent in the hopes of reducing the number of traffic lawbreakers. He said essentially, getting such individuals off the streets serves to create a safer environment for motorists and passengers alike. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez. SLASPA is continuing efforts of training and education in the various areas which fall under its purview. This time around, the police delved into maritime law with the members of the Division of Maritime Affairs of SLASPA. More in this report. The boating sector plays a vital role in St. Lucia's tourism industry. Recognizing the growth and impact of this sector, the Maritime Affairs Division of the St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority has provided training for members of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force in various maritime-related laws. The latest workshop was held at the Grosley Police Station for officers posted at Grosley, Rodney Bay and Babonneau police stations. Director of Maritime Affairs at SLASPA, Mr. Christopher Alexander, outlined the objectives of the workshop.
I think it's important that SLASPA train police across the island. We have done training in the southern part of the island, and we're now conducting maritime safety training for those persons. We're also doing the maritime laws of St. Lucia, boating safety awareness, as well as ship security and port facility, because Rodney Bay Marina is part of a safety security regime. So we've had 20 persons in that forum that we're conducting that half-day training with. And we're thinking the benefits to St. Lucia will be that we will have the police who are based on land. They will be aware of the powers that they have through our maritime laws of St. Lucia.
Mr. Alexander commended the police officers who had completed the first training workshop, saying their recent increased activity in the boating sector reflected the training they received.
We've seen benefits from the last training that we've done. We realize the police are more proactive as it relates to boating safety and the maritime laws of St. Lucia. So we open the boats, will go out there, they will make interventions, they will stop boats that are operating locally, check on their life-saving equipment to ensure that those boats, they comply with the standards in St. Lucia. So SLASPA will continue its efforts to see if we can train all police officers across the board in terms of maritime law-related activities.
Sergeant Brian Preville of the Grosley Police Station, one of the participants of the workshop, said the training was very timely and necessary, since the officers work in a central hub of tourism activity and the boating sector.
Well, hopefully that training will assist us a lot, because based on the questions I'm hearing from some of the participants, they seem very eager to take on the challenge. I feel after the training, we will get a little more serious. Persons will be challenging these boaters a little more, and seafarers, because we've been having some issues within the area. And if we get the training, we have more persons who can assist the marine unit. So certain calls we do not have to have the marine unit being displaced from Castries to come to Rodney Bay. There are certain issues that we can handle on our end, and the training is very vital, and it should be able to lessen the amount of outings that the marine unit might have to do when they might have to focus on other issues. So certain issues within our jurisdiction, we should be able to handle that without the marine unit.
The next step, according to Mr. Alexander, would be to extend the training to hotel establishments, specifically targeting the water sports department, to furnish them with the knowledge and tools to enable them to protect the tourism and boating sector and develop a better relationship with local boaters and the marine police. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez. This is the Hot 7 Nightly News. Stay with us, we'll be right back.